It's my great joy to introduce our wonderful guest for today, Jane Langof, which is a multi-award winning Feng Shui master based in Sydney, Australia. Since, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, since 2008, she has worked at the intersection of energy, design, and well being, helping property owners and design team worldwide achieving harmony, attracting prosperity, and maximizing the potential of their spaces. Jane is an accredited designer with the Design Institute of Australia and is certified by the International Feng Shui Association in Singapore. She's also the author of the award winning book Feng Shui, A Homeowner's Guide to Abundance. Jane is recognized internationally for advancing a modern, design-conscious expression of Feng Shui, and her mission is to demystify this ancient wisdom and make it accessible, empowering, and aligned with the way people live today. So in today's session, Jane will explore how the energy of our surroundings influences well-being, clarity, and the way we experience daily life. I will not say much more about her. She has a very beautiful mission, which is explore how the energy of our surroundings influences well-being, clarity, and the way we experience daily life. And with this said, well, I will leave it to her because she has many, many beautiful things to say today. So I would say, Jane, the floor is yours.
So I'd like to start with a story. In the late 1970s, a spiritual teacher named Professor Lin Yun first introduced Feng Shui to the Western world. He created a simplified method called Black Hat Feng Shui. This approach was based on the idea that every home has the same map of energy based on the location of the front door. But here's the thing, that method was completely made up, fake, phony. It wasn't part of the authentic Feng Shui tradition that developed in China over thousands of years. The professor was responsible for giving Feng Shui its first big break in the West, and it became wildly popular, but not with a lot of credibility. And that's because it reduced a deep, complex practice into a handful of quick fixes and cookie cutter techniques. The problem is those shortcuts stuck. And today, many of the books, online courses, and information you'll see out there are using these oversimplified methods. Now, I've been practicing Feng Shui since 2008, and in all my years of experience, I know one thing to be true. About 80% of the information you'll find out there is not real Feng Shui at all. It's what I like to call Feng Shite. You see, for the longest time in the West, Feng Shui was trivialized, treated as a novelty or superstition rather than a serious design framework. But that's changing. And roll forward to today, Feng Shui is more relevant than ever before. And not just because it's aligned with not just because it's important to so many people in the community, but because it's aligned with the booming wellness economy. Hang on. The global wellness market is a multi-trillion-dollar industry and is set to grow to US $9 trillion by 2028. And it's not a fad either. Feng Shui is one of the oldest and most enduring design frameworks. For thousands of years, it's shaped the way people live, work, and design their spaces. And it's showing up in the headlines. Luxury homes sold for tens of millions of dollars. Feng Shui design homes cracking property records. And here's something new. I was credited alongside SJB, the architect, as the Feng Shui master behind one of these luxury properties. So now people are using Feng Shui for buying and selling their homes, for their renovations and new builds, and even in their marketing. But here's the challenge. The industry is completely unregulated, which means anyone can call themselves a Feng Shui consultant or teach a course. Some are qualified, many are not. And so my mission is to cut through the myths and to show how Feng Shui can genuinely support well-being, abundance, and even property value. Today, I'm going to share with you the facts of what Feng Shui really is, the key principles and concepts, and the practical do's and don'ts, and a case study at the end to bring it to life. But first, let's talk about what Feng Shui is not. So, Feng Shui is not Chinese interior design. It's not about decorating your home with tacky, lucky objects and turning your place into a Chinese restaurant. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Feng Shui is very contextual. And Feng Shui is not a trend. Just because we might have heard a little bit more about Feng Shui now, doesn't mean that it's something that's going to fall away in the next year or so. Feng Shui has been around for thousands of years and it continues to endure. So let's talk about what Feng Shui really is. Now, there are different ways of even pronouncing Feng Shui. There's Feng Shui, Feng Shui, Feng Shui, Feng Shui. And when people can't remember how to say it properly, I say it's like Feng Shui is an easy way of remembering it because it's like a fun way to work with Jane. So Feng Shui is the art of arranging your living and work spaces to create the optimal flow of energy. It's about your relationship with your environment and your surroundings and how the energy in your surroundings can impact you on a mental, physical, and spiritual level. Ancient Chinese masters discovered that different patterns of energy affected the human body and mind. When people were aligned with positive energy, they experienced periods of good fortune. Whereas if they're aligned with negative energy, they experienced periods of misfortune and obstacles. And from these observations came a defined set of rules, guidelines, mathematical systems that form the basis of traditional Feng Shui today. So real Feng Shui, although it's got cultural associations with China, is not about Chinese superstitions. Feng Shui is actually about energy flow and getting the energy flow right in our environment to create a background, to create an environment that supports us, that supports our well-being, how we show up in life, our success, abundance, our productivity, our clarity, well-being, all of those things that we want to achieve. So Feng Shui originated from three main philosophical influences: Taoism, Confucianism, and Zen Buddhism, originally Chan Buddhism. And all this relates to going with the flow of nature, having things in the right order, balance, allowing things to age. So, for example, if we've got a front entrance, we want it to operate as a front entrance. It's not a bedroom, so we're not going to whack our bed in there. We need the front entrance to work as it is. So that's one of the original principles of Feng Shui. And if we think back to when Feng Shui was first developed, it's really about yin and yang. It's really about life, creating life, and reproducing at the end of the day. That's what it's about. It's about protecting ourselves, finding a suitable space where we can create life. One of the fundamental principles of Feng Shui is qi, and qi is often translated to energy. And there are many different definitions for qi. In Chinese medicine, it's about life force energy. It's in quantum physics, that it's about the energy that connects us all together in our surroundings. In Feng Shui, it can be defined as form and formless energy, and its potential to become. So what do I mean by that? So energy in its form is something that you can touch and pick up, and something that's tangible, like a chair or a table or a door, right? Intangible energy or formless energy is something like emotions, ideas, philosophies. So qi is actually not quantifiable, because we are also looking at the potential of the qi, the potential of this energy, and the potential of what is to become. So if we've got a chair, for example, I can be really nice and suggest to you, come and take a seat on the chair. Or else I can use the chair to throw at you, okay? Both two different ways of expressing the qi of a chair, but very different. So there's potential in the qi. So what I want you to take away with is that often you hear about these issues from a Feng Shui perspective where, let's say, the front door is in direct alignment with the back door, which is seen as a bit of a Feng Shui taboo. That suggests that money comes into the home and escapes out too quickly. This is a potential. Does not necessarily mean that this is going to manifest in your life. So the way I approach Feng Shui is from a place of empowerment. is from a place of maximizing the energy of our space and our environment around us, not to create fear and superstition, not to make you feel bad about living in your home. It's all about what we can do to raise the energy. Okay, so never feel bad about it. There's no such thing as perfect feng shui. In my own home, I don't even have perfect feng shui. It's just about what you can do to create a supportive environment and leave your place better than what you did before you arrived. So if you are doing a renovation or a new build, or you're refurbishing a space, just think about how you can leave it better for the next occupants energetically. There are two main schools of feng shui: form school and compass school. Form school is to do with the tangible energy, with the physical forms, with the location of the windows, the bed, the door, the lounges, the furniture layouts, all of those sorts of things. Compass school is a little bit more abstract. It relates to all the formulas and systems that I mentioned before. That these formulas, there are feng shui formulas, there are many, many different schools, compass schools, systems of feng shui. And we look at feng shui in analyzing the energy map of the intangible energy. So what we do is we balance the two schools of feng shui, the form and the compass. So we make sure that the place works from a practical, tangible energetic point of view, and that also it works from an intangible energy point of view. The most important thing in feng shui is that we get things practical and functional. And this is where things go wrong in my industry, that I find. Because what I often find is that there are people that are putting the compass school, the formulas, ahead of the form and the practicalities of feng shui. So today in this presentation, I'm going to be talking to you about form feng shui, because that is the number one original system of feng shui, the most important that you really need to know about as environmental designers.
My question is regarding the furniture. How much of this new and old, because I have also some old furniture that I want to refurnish and make it nicer. So I'm also like to mix some old styles with new. So what would you say about this?
Oh, I love that. It's about yin and yang, again, bringing in some bit of old with a bit of new. It injects a lot of personality into a place. As long as you know what the history of that old piece of furniture is, that's ideal. Like if you know the history. Sometimes people get a bit funny with using antiques where they don't know what the background is. It could be in a space where there was in a home where there was divorce and there was a lot of fighting, because, you know, the materials that we've got around us energetically have an imprint based on what goes on in our surroundings. So as long as you know that it's all cool, you can even sage your furniture. But I'm a big fan of having pieces that resonate with you, that there's history behind it and meaning. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Everything does not need to be brand new in feng shui. We can have materials and we can have things that are aged. It's fine. It's all natural.
Yes, and also with ecological thinking, it's also to bring again some life to an old furniture. So
yeah,
I also like to do that. So it's also another plus.
Absolutely, I love that. Yeah, so cool.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Anyone else have any questions, or is everybody else a bit shy? Oh, Eric, hello. Nice to hear from you.
Yes, nice to see you, Jane. I would like to thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I'm always excited when someone is talking about Feng Shui because it's a passion for me. So I have a very quick question. It's about your personal project. I wanted to know if you take into account your personal energy and the personal energy of your family for this project.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we looked at the birth dates of everybody, and also the likes and the requirements of each of the people as well. For example, this office that I'm sitting in right now, this office is in the northwest part of my home. My office was previously downstairs in the southwest area, and there's a whole bunch of trees around it, which makes that room really, really cold. So my husband was previously up here and I was down there, and I was freezing all the time. I was always cold. And then not even working from there, going into the living room and turning on the fireplace and sitting in front of that. And he was up here with a fan on and a t-shirt in winter. And so I said, this is madness. Like, if you want to keep spending money on me burning this fireplace and you sitting up here, it's not going to be very good. So I think we need to swap. And so we swapped. And then he ended up going into the cooler area. I came into the warmer area, and it worked out so much better. So even just something simple like that, makes sense. And we need to really look at the energetic needs of the occupants. Sometimes the kids might be better off in a room that is brighter because they're studying, whereas the parents don't need that. They just want to have that nurturing sort of cocooning effect where they want to just sleep in, or teenagers that just want to sleep in, so they don't need that bright room. So considering all of those things is very important. So yeah, Feng Shui is contextual, and there's a lot of nuance there, and you need to really look at the needs of everybody in all levels. Yeah, good question.
Thank you, Jane.